There is a light bulb in California that has been burning since 1901, 124 years of continuous light. It hangs from the ceiling of a fire station in Livermore, California. It has outlasted every firefighter who ever worked beneath it. It has outlasted the wiring of the building itself. It has outlasted 3 separate webcams installed simply to prove that it is still on. When the fire department moved stations in 1976, the bulb was given a full fire truck escort. An electrician stood waiting at the new building to plug it back in. 22 minutes without power was all it ever needed. That remains the only significant interruption in more than a century of continuous burning. The Guinness Book of World Records has certified it. Ripley's Believe It or Not featured it on television. The U.S. government has acknowledged it through letters from senators and members of Congress. It is not a myth. It is not folklore. It is a 4-watt glow hanging 15 feet above a concrete floor, and you can watch it right now on a live webcam. The bulb was made by a man named Adolphe Chaillet. His company was eventually bought by General Electric. His factory was shut down. His technology was discontinued. And 10 years after he vanished from the historical record, General Electric sat in a room in Geneva with every major light bulb manufacturer on the planet and agreed to ensure that nothing like his bulb would ever reach consumers again. Chaillet was born in Paris on July 15, 1867. His father was a Swedish watchmaker. His mother was Russian. He trained in both German and French scientific institutions and became an expert in chemistry, mineralogy, and electrical engineering. In 1891, he boarded a ship called the Teutonic and sailed to America. He married Maud Bickmore of Maine, and by 1896 he had arrived in a small town in Ohio that was about to become an unlikely center of the lighting world. The town was Shelby. The company was the Shelby Electric Company, formed with $100,000 in capital and about 50 stockholders. Chaillet served as technical manager. John Chamberlain Fish was secretary. William W. Skiles, a future United States representative, was president. They built a factory on 3 acres of farmland and began manufacturing light bulbs. Within 18 months, the local newspaper was writing about them. The Shelby News referred to their company updates as electric flashes. By 1897, Chaillet's lamp design was featured in Electrical World magazine. The article described a bulb with a filament manufactured using, in direct quotation, a secret chemical process. Chaillet did not publish the composition. He did not license the technique. He kept the most important part of his invention completely hidden. By 1899, the United States Treasury Department had placed an order for approximately 40,000 Shelby lamps. By 1902, the factory was producing 10,000 bulbs a day with nearly 900 employees. Most of the assembly workers were women, chosen for their small, steady hands. They blew glass and fitted filaments into bulbs designed from the beginning to last. Shelby's advertisements did not emphasize price. They emphasized permanence. The longest life with the greatest economy. That was the selling point. Not cheap, not disposable, built to endure. There is, of course, a skeptical response, and it is a fair one. The Centennial bulb now runs at very low wattage. It was originally 60 watts, but over the decades it has dimmed to roughly 4. Perhaps it survives because it barely works. Perhaps old products only seem superior because we remember the ones that lasted and forget the thousands that failed. That is survivorship bias, and it is a real phenomenon. I considered that for a long time. Then I found the research. Deborah Katz, a physics professor at the United States Naval Academy, led a study on Shelby bulbs. Her team could not test the Centennial bulb directly because removing it might destroy it. Instead, they tested identical Shelby bulbs from the same era. Using lasers to measure the filaments, they found something that ended the survivorship bias argument. Chaillet's filament is 8 times thicker than a modern incandescent filament. 8 times. And it behaves differently at the molecular level. When tungsten filaments heat up, they resist more electricity. When Chaillet's carbon filament heats up, it allows more electricity through. The opposite behavior. Student researcher Justin Felger published these findings in a 2010 paper. Even Mythbusters investigated the bulb and could not fully explain how the filament was made. Whatever Chaillet created in that Ohio factory was not simply a slightly better version of what others were making. It was fundamentally different, and he ensured that the formula never appeared in any document anyone could locate. That decision is difficult to ignore. When Chaillet filed his patent on October 22, 1900, he described the shape of the filament and the design of the glass, but he left out the composition of the filament itself. He omitted the manufacturing process. The very element that made his bulbs last for decades remained a trade secret rather than a patent. Patents expire. Patents are acquired. Trade secrets die with their keeper. It is almost as if he anticipated someone would try to take it. The timeline that follows makes that possibility hard to dismiss. General Electric had been quietly consolidating the American lighting industry since the 1890s. In 1901, a group of smaller lamp manufacturers formed the National Electric Lamp Association, known as NELA, to compete with GE. Shelby Electric joined. It appeared to be a move toward independence. But there was a problem few outside the boardroom understood. GE had secretly purchased 75% of NELA's stock. The alliance formed to challenge General Electric was, from the beginning, controlled by General Electric. Around 1903, NELA purchased Shelby Electric. Chaillet's company now belonged, through a chain of ownership, to GE. In 1911, a federal court uncovered the arrangement. GE had owned 75% of NELA the entire time. The court ordered NELA dissolved. GE's response was not to release the companies. It absorbed them directly. Every manufacturer that had joined NELA believing it was protecting its independence was folded into General Electric. On approximately March 19, 1912, the Shelby Electric Company ceased to exist. GE opened its massive NELA Park facility in Cleveland and moved operations there. By 1914, not a single lamp was being manufactured at the Shelby factory. By 1919, the building had been converted into a tractor company. The name Shelby Electric disappeared from the industry. The people behind it disappeared as well. William W. Skiles, company president and U.S. representative, died in 1904 at age 54. John Chamberlain Fish, the co-founder who rose to become president of NELA, died in 1909 at approximately 44 years old. The Shelby Daily Globe ran a 5-column obituary on April 20, 1909. John Cooper Whiteside, the company's superintendent, died in 1926 at 55. And Adolphe Chaillet, the man whose name should appear in every history of American invention, worked at a lamp factory in Mexico City from 1904 to 1914. The Mexican Revolution forced him back to the United States. Then he died. Records state that it was sometime after 1914. He was approximately 47 years old. The exact date is uncertain. The exact circumstances are uncertain. Some researchers who have traced his story suggest that he may have simply disappeared. I want to be careful here. I spent 3 weeks with this research before writing a single word. People die. People died young in that era. There were revolutions, epidemics, and countless ordinary explanations. I am not suggesting anything sinister about any individual death. What I am saying is that the knowledge died. The filament process, the chemical composition, the manufacturing technique that produced a bulb capable of burning for over a century. None of it was preserved. None of it was passed down. In 2010, a Naval Academy physics professor attempted to reverse engineer a Shelby bulb. She could not fully explain how the filament works. The United States Patent Office holds the paperwork, and the answer is not in it. Whatever Chaillet knew is gone. And then, 10 years after he vanished from the historical record, something happened. December 23, 1924. Geneva, Switzerland. Representatives from every major light bulb manufacturer in the world gathered in a single room. Osram from Germany, Philips from the Netherlands, Tungsram from Hungary, Compagnie de Lampes from France, Associated Electrical Industries from Britain, Tokyo Electric from Japan, and General Electric from the United States, participating through its international subsidiaries, the same General Electric that had absorbed Shelby Electric 12 years earlier. They formed the Phoebus Cartel, named after the Greek god of light and registered as a legal Swiss corporation. Their public purpose was standardization and efficiency. Their actual purpose, documented in internal records that surfaced decades later, was to ensure that no light bulb sold anywhere in the world lasted more than 1,000 hours. At the time, the average bulb lasted 2,500 hours. Their mandate was to cut that number by more than half. They established a testing laboratory in Switzerland. Every member factory was required to send sample bulbs for inspection. If a factory's bulbs lasted longer than 1,000 hours, it was fined half a Swiss franc for every 100 hours over the limit. Let that settle in. They did not fine companies for making bulbs that failed too quickly. They fined them for making bulbs that lasted too long. Engineers who had spent their careers extending bulb life were ordered to make their products fail sooner, and they succeeded. By 1934, the average lifespan of a standard light bulb had dropped from 1,800 hours to just over 1,200. No factory on Earth was producing bulbs that lasted more than 1,500 hours. At its peak, the Phoebus Cartel controlled approximately 90% of global light bulb production. The agreement was designed to last until 1955. It collapsed in 1940 only because the Second World War made international coordination impossible. But the 1,000-hour standard survived. Long after the cartel dissolved, manufacturers continued building to its specifications. The standard became the norm. When a U.S. court finally found General Electric guilty of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act in the early 1950s, it barely registered in the public consciousness. By then, no one remembered that light bulbs had ever lasted longer. There is a phrase I keep returning to. They did not suppress a better product. They made a worse one mandatory. And the light bulb was not the last time this playbook appeared. In 1939, DuPont released nylon stockings that were nearly indestructible. Women reportedly used them to tow cars. Demand was so intense that newspapers described nylon riots in stores. Then DuPont recognized the problem. If stockings never break, customers never buy more. So their chemists were sent back to the laboratory with a new directive. Make them weaker. The next versions tore easily. A French consumer study by the organization Halt à l'Obsolescence Programme found that 72% of modern tights break within an average of 6 wears. This was not an accident of progress. It was progress deliberately reversed. There is another detail often overlooked. DuPont acquired a controlling stake in General Motors in 1921. The same company that weakened its own stockings also pioneered the strategy of changing car designs every year to make last year's model feel obsolete. The same ownership, the same philosophy, applied across entirely different industries at the same time. One detail from the Shelby Electric timeline stayed with me for weeks. When GE absorbed the company, the Shelby sales division was not immediately shut down. It was rebranded as the Empire Lamp Division and relocated to Buffalo, New York, the same city Chaillet had moved to when he left Shelby in 1901. That sales division operated until April 1, 1925. The Phoebus Cartel was formed on December 23, 1924. The last organizational trace of Chaillet's company was erased within months of the cartel's creation. The door closed, and the lock was changed in the same motion. Consider what you replace in your own home. Light bulbs, appliances, chargers, cables, phone batteries that barely hold a charge after 2 years. Washing machines your grandmother ran for 30 years, replaced by models that struggle to reach 7. Products your grandparents bought once and used for decades are now replaced every few years. You have been told this is because technology moves fast, because materials are cheaper, because markets offer more options at lower prices. Some of that is true. But there is another explanation, also documented, also proven in court, also visible in corporate archives unsealed decades later. Products are designed to fail not because they must, but because a product that lasts is a customer lost. The Phoebus Cartel was the first time this philosophy was formalized, enforced with fines, and applied across an entire global industry. It worked so effectively that it became a template. Cars, clothing, electronics. The principle remained consistent. Never allow a product to outlast a consumer's willingness to replace it. And yet, the Centennial Light is still burning. You can verify this yourself. It hangs in Fire Station Number 6 at 4550 East Avenue in Livermore, California. There is a live webcam. A committee maintains it, a partnership between the fire department, the Livermore Heritage Guild, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and Sandia National Laboratories. The bulb has its own website. It has been featured on network television, in documentary films, in newspapers around the world. Everyone marvels at the bulb. Almost no one asks about the man who made it. Adolphe Chaillet understood something about carbon and glass and electricity that we cannot replicate today. He guarded that knowledge so completely that even his patent omits it. He watched the industry consolidate around him. He watched his company absorbed. And whatever he carried in his mind went with him when he disappeared from the record. The bulb does not concern itself with cartels or patents or corporate acquisitions. It has been doing the only thing it was designed to do for 124 years. Glowing quietly in a fire station in California. Proof that something better once existed. Proof that it was taken away. And proof that whoever removed it could not erase the evidence entirely. The question that remains is not how it still works. The question is why it was the last one they ever allowed anyone to have.